Now will we see the magic?
All right, where's Murray? Okay, who is it?
This is Jesus, kid.
Know then that it is the year 10,191.
Yes, we are bored. We're all bored now.
Hi, good night.
Good night.
Hello, and welcome to Mary versus the Movies with your host, Mary Jones.
And Dennis Ling.
And are you imitating my voice?
No, I'm not.
Really? What are you doing then?
I'm just doing normal things.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
You're not trying to mess with me?
No.
I don't entirely believe you, but all right, that's fine, whatever. Especially because you're laughing at me. All right. See,
All
for
right.
all I know, you're trying... What? Oh!
Hi.
All right, let's start the show. God, what was I doing, Mark? Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, that's right. I guess it was over a week ago. We went to the theater and we saw 2001: A Space Odyssey.
You know, seeing that movie, it's easy to lose track of time.
Yeah, it's true. I have no idea what day it is right now. And I had never seen it on the big screen, and I was just overwhelmed by the experience. It was truly one of the greatest films ever made. Strange and wonderful and visionary and etc. You know the drill if you have seen it.
And it's a lot different in the theater than seeing it on TV.
It really is.
And especially sound-wise, like I think you really need it to be cranked up to notice a lot of things.
Absolutely, totally. Yeah, it's unlike anything I've really seen in a theater. It really was a special experience. So I thought, let's ruin that by watching one of the sequels.
There's others?
There are apparently, 2 sequels at least?
I had no idea.
To 2001?
Yeah.
That's what we're watching today.
I know there's one sequel.
I thought there was a second one.
Not that I've ever
Oh,
heard
maybe
of.
there's a book.
Huh. The Green Earth?
No, the Green Earth.
That's like the E.T. sequel.
Oh, God. I didn't know there was an E.T. sequel.
Only in book form. I mean, they had talked about it as a movie, but yeah.
That sounds terrible. So we're watching 2010, the year we make contact. I could swear there's a movie after that, or maybe there's just a novel after that.
Huh.
The only reason I know that, and I don't even know that I know it, is just I worked at a bookstore. I've worked at more than one bookstore, and I could have sworn that there were, you've got 2001, Arthur C. Clarke, and then I guess he wrote a sequel, and that's a movie, and I could swear there's like another one after that, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
2011, yada yada yada.
Yeah, I don't know. But so yeah, okay, maybe there's only one sequel. Maybe I'm wrong. But anyway, so this is 2010.
The second movie of the 2000s franchise. The 2000s verse.
Yeah, exactly. 2012, when Romney's attack.
Yeah.
2015, the last semi-normal year. 2016, it's all downhill from here. The movies get progressively worse as time goes on.
What year was the car in space? Elon's car in space.
I don't know, but I just wish he had been in that car. Because the car's still up there as far as I know, right?
Yeah.
Or like maybe came down to Earth and incinerated. Again, it would be kind of nice if he was driving that stupid car.
I think I heard that like at least like the paint would have all been, I don't know, faded or something from the sun.
That's the least of my concerns or desires. So we're watching this movie. Sequels, sometimes there are some great sequels out there, obviously. Godfather Part 2 is amazing. Bride of Frankenstein. Another Thin Man. There are great sequels out there.
Empire Strikes Back.
Empire Strikes Back, yeah, sure.
Aliens.
The Wrath of Khan.
Yeah.
Yeah, Aliens. There are great sequels out there. I have a feeling this is not going to be... I don't know that it's actually going to be a bad movie. Let me put it this way. I'm not saying that what we're going to watch is a bad film. I have no idea about the quality of the film. None whatsoever. But it's going to be weird because we're going from this strange visionary meditation on consciousness and humanity and the stars, made by Stanley Kubrick. I don't know who directs this.
Do you know who's in it?
I don't know who's in this. I don't know.
You'll at least recognize who's in it.
So it's not like it's no-name actors.
Right.
All right. I assume Arthur C. Clarke wrote the screenplay, at least to some extent.
I don't know.
But I don't know. And I don't really have an opinion on Arthur C. Clarke. It's just that he happened to work with Kubrick on the original. But I don't know who the director is. And, it's funny. Like, so this is like 84? So they went like 15 years, 16 years before they had a sequel come out?
It's funny.
That's a long time.
Well, at the time I thought it was a long time. Now I'm like, oh, that's not that long.
No, but come on. I mean, okay, so...
I mean, Star Wars was like, what?
Yeah, that was a long time. That was almost as long, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah,
actually,
when they did the prequels.
Yeah, so 83 to 97, I think.
Yeah. And I mean, how long was it between Blade Runner and Blade Runner 2049 or
That was
whatever it's
way
called?
longer.
That was a long time, yeah. I'm trying to think of like some examples where it's like, yeah, I took a long time to make this sequel and it's great.
Well, there's, I guess, the Twin Peaks: The Return.
All right, I'll give you that one.
Yeah.
Sure. But that's one guy's own vision.
Yeah.
That's not what this is.
No.
This is not Kubrick's vision. This is not, I don't know if this is Arthur C. Clarke's. I don't know who the director is.
This is closer to Blade Runner in that
Okay.
it's someone just completely. It's sort of like Aliens, but that was a shorter amount of time.
That was a shorter amount of time. Aliens is kind of funny where they were able to make, here's like the first film, and it's amazing and it's terrifying and it's great. And it's one of the scariest movies I've ever seen. And then you come back, different director, I assume maybe a different writer. I don't know if Dan O'Bannon wrote Aliens.
Yeah, I don't think
And really the only thing that's tying it together is Sigourney Weaver.
Yeah.
And it's great.
It is.
It's a great action movie.
And it's a completely different vibe, but
Yeah.
it still works. Yeah.
You know what? I mean, maybe that's just Cameron.
Yeah.
Cameron can pull that off because he did it with Terminator. There's a gap between the first and second Terminator movies.
Yeah.
Not that long of a gap, but he did the second. He did Aliens, and
Yeah. The second Terminator doesn't really feel like the first Terminator,
No.
but it still works.
it still works.
Yeah.
It's still a good movie. Yeah,
He just has a feel.
he has a feel. So I don't know who directs this. Maybe he's not going to feel like Kubrick, but maybe it'll be good. That's the thing. So like where I'm going with my thought on this is, so back when the pandemic started, we went and watched The Black Hole, and The Black Hole was this movie that I had never seen, but I was aware of as a kid, and it was sort of like, oh, it's like Star Wars, but it's not Star Wars, so I never saw it. And then you go and watch it, and on the one hand, yeah, this is Disney needing a Star Wars type
It's definitely
movie.
what Disney wanted.
It's what Disney wanted, and because The Black Hole never worked out, they bought, the Lucas, film or whatever, and now on Star Wars. But The Black Hole is interesting because if you take it away from its circumstances, hey, we need a Star Wars movie and we don't have Star Wars, and you just take it on its own, it's a good movie. Or like 90% a good movie. Yeah. But it's a weird movie. It doesn't feel...
It feels like a movie from like 1959.
Yeah, it does. It does.
with like better effects, maybe. But
yeah, but see, I like the way that it feels. I like that it feels like this like weirder, older. It feels more like Forbidden Planet than, something that came after Star Wars.
Like it has that whole serious sci-fi feel of those vibes, but like... still kind of silly.
Right, exactly.
Like we're doing something serious, but it's not really.
And if you watch it as an adult and you're not looking for it to be Star Wars,
yeah,
Black Hole's kind of enjoyable.
Yeah.
I don't know if watching this film, if we go into it not expecting 2001, not expecting, Stanley Kubrick, if we go into this just looking at like, okay, it's a sci-fi film, and I guess it's about us making contact with whatever's in the monoliths. I assume that's what this is. I don't know. But, we're making contact with whatever sent the monolith or whatever the monolith is. That's the thing. I can't imagine what this is even a sequel to. Because 2001 is such a weird movie. And, it ends with the whole Star Child thing. And it's just like, okay, so what do you do after that? You kind of just have to end the movie there. What in the world comes after that?
All I'll say is that the star of this has experience with sequels, in that we've seen him in a sequel before.
Well, That could be anybody. Is Bill Murray in this?
Maybe.
I mean, what does that mean? He has experience with sequels. That's any... Sean Connery? I mean, this could be anything.
You'll know what I mean when you say
Oh, Christ. All right.
it. Do you think there's a love story?
God, I hope not. No, I want this to be pure nerds.
Just all dudes?
Just, yeah, that's fine. Sausages in space.
Do you think there's kids on a monitor on a TV? Like in, hey, Daddy? That
Oh,
type of
you like a
thing.
video call?
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we get like stuff that is now shockingly commonplace, but at the
Yeah.
time was like, this is living in the future. We have video calls. And yeah, so that wouldn't surprise me if we see stuff like that. Sure. Yeah, I mean, we'll probably see kind of, whatever the vision that Kubrick had in the first movie, which is kind of an interesting, the future is kind of what we think it is, kind of not, but like there's commercialization everywhere, which I found fascinating. Like that whole scene on the space station where they have a Howard Johnson's and, it's Ma Bell is placing your phone call. And I'm like, that is kind of how it worked out. If they could get us actually up there, that's exactly what they would do. They'd be selling it all off to, the high, you'd have Dunkin' Donuts in space. It was not Howard Johnson's, but you'd have Dunkin'. Imagine trying to get your iced latte in space, yeah, I don't know. So yeah, I don't know. I think it will look kind of like that vision of the future, which by 1984 or 5 or whenever this came out was kind of an old image of the future.
Thoughts on the ending?
See, that's what I was saying. The ending of 2001 is so strange. I mean, it's a really weird ending. It's great. I love it. But, he goes into the monolith, spends the rest of his life in some sort of weird, French chateau room or whatever, and then, suddenly becomes like the Star Child and is like this giant fetus floating over the earth.
Yep.
Where do you go from there? Like, what do we get another monolith? Do they explain what the heck these monoliths are? Like, is the monolith technology or is it a being? Is it a space ghost?
Is it a Hershey bar?
Is it an iPhone? That's what the iPhone is supposed to be.
Yeah.
It was so weird watching 2001 for the first time, like just actually sitting and watching and paying attention to it for real and not being a snotty teenager being like, oh, I'm bored. Watching it for real and just kind of going, oh my God, Steve Jobs must have jerked off to this every night. Sorry. I'm sorry. I know that's a little gross, but like, it's just like.
You mean tossed off.
Yeah. Exactly. No, it was wild watching it and just going, oh, this is what they were obsessing over. This is what Apple's been nothing but, yeah.
Yeah.
And just kind of going, oh, God, I feel so dumb. I forgot that's what they were doing this whole time.
I'm sure in meetings like about the iPhone, they talked about it.
Oh.
Like, it's got to be like the monolith from, yeah.
I'll bet you anything. I've just kind of completely forgotten. I'm sure there was like an ad campaign that used Zarathustra and stuff and did the whole like lining up of the planets. Like I don't know if I actually saw a commercial or a campaign that looked like that when they brought out the iPhone, or if like they've just subliminally put that out there and because like that's the thing, like Apple has made us like kind of associate the iPhone, this black, rectangular object. It looks like the monolith. Like they obviously modeled it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you pick up your stupid little phone and you open up Twitter or whatever and lose your mind looking at it, and you're basically like the end of the movie where, you're going through the vortex and it's just like those little static shots of his face going, ah! I mean, that's basically your face when you open Twitter now.
Yeah.
Like these stupid things are like evil monoliths.
What always reminds me of phones, and us on phones is Gollum in the Lord of the Rings. Whenever you see him kind of pretending to noodle with the ring in his hand, I feel like that's what I look like most of the time. That's me.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to post a hot take this time.
And let me tell you, man, every time I worry and I drop my phone, it's a real, oh no, my precious.
Exactly.
But that's because these things cost like $1,000 now.
Yeah, just
they didn't used to
$1,000.
be that expensive.
Nope.
Ugh. All right, so shall we go find out if this is a movie of evil monoliths making people lose their minds?
Yeah.
All right.
Da, da. Da, 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 da.
What?
Sorry. Music was inspiring.
Well, no. The music of 2001 is inspiring.
Yeah.
And this is occasionally a rehash.
Yeah.
It's weird, though, when you think of the... Okay, so just today, we're recording this on Monday because we had a very busy weekend. I have no idea when this is going to come out. But my mom, having talked to, listened to us talk about 2001, decided to sit down and rewatch the movie.
Mm-hmm.
The opening of 2001, it's iconic. I mean, you have the lining up of the sun and the moon and the earth, and you have Zarathustra and all that stuff, right?
Yep.
And the monolith, and they do the same music here. It's not the same.
No,
it's not even close to the same thing.
And it doesn't even like the credits don't really land on the beats.
No,
it's like the credits for like a TV show.
Yes, exactly. This is like if Fox had made a TV version of 2010 in 1998, how they would make like Friday the 13th, the series.
Yeah.
This is 2010, the series.
Family Odyssey.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my God, it is Family Odyssey too. This movie is not a bad film at all.
No.
This is actually a very solid science fiction movie.
Yeah.
Well directed by... what the heck is the man's
Peter
name?
Hyams?
Peter Hyams, who, because I didn't know he directed this. We've seen. He directed and wrote Outland.
Kind of the same feel.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is.
I mean, he's back at his old stomping grounds of Jupiter.
Oh, you're right. Actually, I hadn't thought about that. In fact, I'm sure Outland is why they hired him.
Yeah.
That they saw that and said, hey,
This guy knows Jupiter.
Outland is a good movie. It's a conventional hard science fiction movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
Go back and listen to our episode on Outland. I really like that movie. It's well done. And this is well done. And this has a good cast and good performances, and the special effects are...
You didn't know any of the cast.
Oh, I had no
and
idea.
It turns out there's a lot.
There's a ton of people in this. Oh my God. Helen Mirren's in this.
Yeah.
Roy Scheider is here playing Dr. Haywood Floyd.
Helen Mirren's in this speaking Russian, and apparently she's part Russian, which I had no idea.
Yes, I think her father was Russian or her grandfather or something like that.
Yeah.
So, although apparently... According to IMDb, her Russian is spoken with an English accent, and I'm like, I have no idea. Sure, fine, I believe you. So John Lithgow is in this, and he's great in this.
He's great, a little underused, I feel like.
Well, he's not like going crazy. Here's the thing: the last time we saw Lithgow, it was in The World According to Garp.
Yeah,
also great there.
Yep.
And he's great in this. And, honestly, the more John Lithgow I can get, the happier I am.
Yeah.
I was happy to see him in this movie. I don't see him enough.
Wow, he's in this, and then he's in Buckaroo Banzai.
I know, right?
Wow.
Yeah. He's great at playing aliens.
Yeah.
I watched a lot of Third Rock from the Sun.
Oh, with Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Oh, my God, you said the name right.
Yeah.
That is probably the only second or third time I've ever heard you say his name correctly. And Bob Balaban is in this.
Yeah.
On the one hand... Hey, cool, it's Bob Balaban. I like seeing him in movies. He's great. On the other hand, why is he cast as an Indian man? What are we doing?
And worse yet, why is he cast as an Indian man who was originally, it was called Dr. Langley.
Yeah.
In the movie in 2001. Like, come on, do some research, background people. Yeah,
it's really weird. When Kubrick made 2001, he changed the name of the computer scientist who programmed HAL from Dr. Chandra to Langley.
Yeah.
In this, they changed it back. They didn't have to change it back.
No.
Because they didn't cast Ben Kingsley, who Arthur C. Clarke wanted, and who would have been good, would have been great in the role. Mm-hmm. They got Bob Balaban, and Balaban does a totally great performance, but he's not an Indian.
Yeah.
What are we? What you did? This is an own goal. You didn't have to do this. And I realize, I don't know if in 1985 or whatever people cared, but they should have cared. I think actually people in India cared.
Yeah, they definitely did.
And they had every right to.
Yeah.
Anyway, so this cast is pretty stacked. It's great.
Yeah.
I didn't expect that going in.
And then we have Roy Scheider playing Chief Brody.
Well, he kind of is, isn't he?
The first time we see him, he's on the contact...
the radio telescopes, yeah.
Telescopes. And he's wearing the shorts from probably he's been wearing them since Jaws 2.
It's true. He is dressed basically like Chief Brody. It's a little distracting, actually.
Yeah.
Although honestly, look, I wish that we would go back to the short shorts on men. It looks good. He's got the legs to pull it off, so let him do it.
So I've always loved him in this movie. Because I just love Roy Scheider, but I had no idea at all that he was supposed to be Floyd. Dr. Floyd from the original movie, the guy that we spend time with. And the thing is, as I was telling you, my thing, like, I knew Bowman and I knew Frank from the first movie. Everyone else I just treated like a Peanuts adult. Like wah, 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 wah. They're just walking, 60s people.
Right, but we spent an entire act of 2001 with Dr. Floyd.
Well, we spent an entire act watching them sit.
Well,
stare at things.
That's But no, he has a conversation with his daughter, and they actually bring her up in this movie. Like it is this. It's supposed to be the same guy, and I mean, obviously they got a different actor, and that's fine. You got to recast.
But even after I watched it, I did not realize that until I started reading about it. I was like, oh,
are you serious?
That's supposed to be him? Oh,
they specifically reference. Oh wow, man.
Yeah. I don't know.
Well.
I mean, he said, I had a wife before and she died, and then, I had a daughter. She's 17 now. But
when they get into how Hal had the breakdown,
yeah,
and he, that it's his responsibility because, he had recorded this other message, you didn't make the connection that that's what they were talking about?
I thought he was just another guy that was in charge or something.
Oh, no. I figured out what was going on.
No, I was slow.
Oh. What's really funny is you've seen this movie before,
yeah,
and you've seen 2001.
But I think, like, when I saw it before, like, I didn't really connect it to 2001 because it's such a different movie.
Yeah.
I saw 2001 when I was a kid, like, younger, and, I was like, oh, that's weird. But
well, I think that's everybody's reaction
Yeah.
when the first time they see 2001. I mean, especially if they're young when they see it.
Yeah, and like the older I get, it's like it feels each time I see it, it gets more and more cohesive.
Yeah. I think that's true, and I think it's something where you appreciate it more every time you see it.
Yeah.
And you find a new thing.
Especially on the big screen. Oh,
boy.
my
God, it's amazing. It really is amazing on the big screen. So watching this, it definitely suffers for being what it is. It's a perfectly well-made and enjoyable, and it's a good movie. I don't want to talk about this movie without pointing out this is a good movie.
Yeah.
The problem is, it's the sequel to Kubrick's best film, a masterpiece, a very strange movie.
Yeah.
A visionary movie. One of the most iconic and weird and impressive things ever committed to celluloid, right?
And also kind of part of what's great about it is just how few answers you get out of it.
Right.
It's supposed to make you think rather than,
It's like following up, I don't know, Finnegan's Wake with The Great Gatsby. Both great books, but they're so completely different, right? Because one is a stream of consciousness. It's dreamlike. It's strange. It's all about like consciousness and all the rest of it. And the other is a very conventional story about human beings.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Thing is, like, it's not just that's the problem, though. Like, there's other issues with this movie.
There absolutely are. All of the voiceover narration, the exposition, it's not good.
It's very much Blade Runner. It's very much that, like, the audience won't get it. Let's get the star to do narration over it. And it's done as if he's recording messages to his daughter or his wife, but film that. Do something. He did this in the original movie. Like, it's easy to do. Like,
yeah, that is really frustrating. Where it's just we hear Roy Scheider's echoey voice.
The echo. It makes it even worse.
Yeah. Sending a voicemail essentially to family back home, talking about, and here's what happened, and so we did this and we did that and the other, and they don't. It's so much telling and no showing.
Yeah.
And which is weird because they didn't have to do that necessarily. This is a film that holds the audience's hand way too much.
Yeah.
And it's not just with like using so much exposition, so much voiceover, so much, let's just tell the audiences what we're actually doing here. It ruins the end of the film.
Yeah.
They get a message from whatever, Dave Bowman has become / the aliens inside the monolith, whatever the monolith is. I mean, I say it's aliens, but we don't actually know what it is. Yeah. Whatever that final message is, all these worlds are yours except for Europa. Attempt no landing there. Okay, now that's fine. If you ended it there, cool.
Yeah.
All right, that's strange. That's mysterious. Okay, we're supposed to go out and explore the universe. Just avoid Europa because we're starting life there.
That's the book, by the way.
That's the book. But then the director goes and adds 2 extra lines.
Use them together. Use them in peace.
Yeah, it sucks. It sucks so much. That's a terrible, tacking on of the message. Because essentially what happens is, while they're trying to figure out, hey, whatever happened to the Discovery, what happened in the first movie, out by Jupiter, of course, and they encounter a monolith, and the monoliths, there's a ton of them all of a sudden, and they collapse Jupiter into a star. Okay, so now the solar system has 2 stars, and that's going to help life develop on Europa. You get to the end of the film, and it says, essentially, you can go anywhere you want, except for Europa, because we're starting over again. Stay out of Eden.
Sorry, Io.
Yeah, Io is apparently a nasty place to go. As this is happening out in space, back on planet Earth, the United States and the Soviet Union are about to go into World War III over something happening on Honduras. At which, this was being made in the 80s, and that's an entirely plausible thing. This is the height of the Cold War, and, everybody was very scared all the time, and, how many nuclear war movies were made? So this is essentially, in order to prevent nuclear war from happening, creating the second star, a second sun in the sky, this, I guess, gives human beings perspective on how, vast the universe is, and there is a détente, there's no war between the United States and the Soviet Union, and they're able to work together.
Essentially the Watchmen thing, the squid landing on...
It is! Oh my God, and that's around the same time period, too.
Right.
Yes, you're right. I didn't make that connection, but you're absolutely right. It's like the end of Watchmen, but without mass death.
Yeah, without a giant squid landing on Manhattan.
Boy, if only the squid had landed on Trump Tower. That would have been pretty cool. It's essentially the same as Watchmen, but Watchmen leaves it ambiguous.
Yeah.
It should have ended more ambiguously, hey, you're given a chance to not go to war, to kind of see the world as, more expansive. But no, it holds our hand because he tacks on those last 2 lines. So all of these worlds are yours, share them. No kidding. We get it. You don't have to beat us over the head with what the message of this film is. And then they show all these different parts of the world where 2 suns are in the sky, and you have this narration from Roy Scheider again saying essentially that and then everybody sort of learned to live in peace, and it's just you didn't have to do that. It's so clumsy. It's so ham-fisted. There's no grace in it. There's absolutely no grace in it. And it's the complete opposite of what Kubrick did in 2001, which is such a strange and ambiguous and mysterious ending. And this is the exact opposite of that.
It just feels like focus group. It feels like test audience, they made something, and then, Roy Scheider has to come back. He probably has a weird tan or something. They can't film him, so just get him in the studio, and they make it echoey because it's, the audio's terrible, and ugh.
The thing is, I don't even know if it's test audiences or anything like that, or if it's the fact that, they made 2001, and it was such a famously weird movie, and everybody talked about, boy, that ending is really strange. And between Arthur C. Clarke and the director, Hyams, they basically said, well, we're not going to make that mistake again. Clarke is like, nope, we're going to definitely put my vision here on paper.
It definitely feels Clarky.
Now, you bring up kind of an interesting problem of, so whose story is this? Whose story is this Odyssey? On the one hand, you can watch 2001 and never watch 2010, and you'll be fine. You can watch 2010 without having seen 2001, and you'll have no trouble understanding the story, but I think you're going to miss something. You're going to miss an experience. 2001 is a truly visionary piece of cinema. It's unlike anything that Hollywood usually puts out. You're not going to get that from 2010. But the story doesn't just belong to Kubrick, because it also does belong to Clarke. As much as I find the sequel graceless and ham-fisted. This is still the story Clark wants to tell. Who does the Odyssey belong to? And it's frustrating because I don't want to dismiss this movie out of hand entirely. It's not like it isn't enjoyable to watch.
Well, it's like Mrs. Columbo. It would be great if it wasn't called that.
Oh, man, that's not a bad example, actually.
Yeah.
Because we watched like one episode of Mrs. Columbo.
Yeah.
And it wasn't bad. And they had Donald Pleasance as the villain. And,
Yeah, that was
and I liked Kate Mulgrew. But at the same time, it's a bit weird to say it's Mrs. Columbo. It's just like, is it though?
And the only link to it is the title, and then like there's a shot of a cigar in an ashtray that she cleans up. And then that's it. It's the only, like, we don't even see the dog.
So, you know what's funny? This film opens with the voice of Dave Bowman, Keir, saying, "My God, it's full of stars."
Oh, we finally get to answer that mystery.
I kind of forgot about that line existing. That line is not in the movie 2001, but I've heard that line before. So it's funny that this movie starts.
Wait, you've heard that line before?
I've run across it. Like it's a meme or something. I don't know. I've come across it.
Probably from this, I guess. I don't know.
Well, no. I mean, that's the thing. It turns out that line was in the book.
Oh.
That line apparently is in the book. It's not in the film 2001. But it's used multiple times in this movie because it's like kind of the last recording of Dave's voice.
So this is
before he goes into.
So this is Arthur C. Clarke being like Paul McCartney saying, "Oh, John would have wanted it this way," or something.
I do appreciate just how hands-off Kubrick was with this. He's just like, yeah, you do your thing. I don't care.
He totally gave him his blessing. He's like, yeah, run with it. I don't care. Arthur C. Clarke, when he wrote Odyssey 2, he called up Kubrick and said, "It's your job to keep people from making a movie of it." Probably Kubrick gave him his blessing just to like mess with Arthur C. Clarke.
Yeah. So I wasn't expecting to hear that line, and yet I went, "Oh, I've run across that before," and I had always just assumed it was in 2001. Although when we watched it, I didn't hear it, and so I don't know. It was just this weird moment of, "Oh, is this where that actually comes from?" It was like a bit like that, what they call that Mandela effect.
Yeah.
Where I just assumed it was in 2001, and then when we saw it, I forgot about it. But here it is. Finally, I know where that actually comes from. And so then we get like the Zarathustra music, and we meet Roy Scheider sitting in the field of telescopes. Basically, a Russian comes along and says, "Hey, guess what? There's something weird going on with the Discovery." And the Discovery, of course, was the ship that was headed for Jupiter that was being piloted by HAL 9000. You if you've seen 2001, you know the story, right? So that's the ship they were on was the Discovery, and the Russians are like, "Look, man, there's something weird going on with that." And they kind of have a little bit of detente of, for the next 45 seconds or whatever, we won't lie to each other.
Yeah. And
so they only say true statements to each other. And I like that they have enough kind of respect for each other that they assume the other person really is telling the truth.
Yeah.
There's a whole thread through this movie of scientists trying to get beyond politics, which is an interesting idea, though I think an impossible one. Right? But I understand what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting problem because it comes up later in the film when the United States and the Soviet Union are about to go to war. The American scientists are kind of like, "Look, let's just put this politics aside. This is nonsense. We don't really have to worry about any of this stuff." And the Russians are all just like, "How you can't," And I don't know if the film says you can't because we just assume that the Russians are so lockstep and would because they're communists, they all do what their government tells them to, and we have this view of these other systems as being that way, and the people all kind of come up through it as participating in a groupthink. Or maybe they're kind of right in that science sort of exists as a method of discovery, but we're all people like trying to do these things, and so you can never really fully escape the web of society that is trying to do science, as it were. And so, we should put science, put politics aside in order to do science. It's like, well, can you do that? That's one reason I really like the movie Oppenheimer, because it's asking the same question of, is there such a thing as pure science? There isn't. Because all of science is being performed by human beings who live within systems. And, you can't separate science from the system in which it is being explored. I don't know if the film wants to believe that, but I think it is actually a problem.
I have a feeling like Arthur C. Clarke thought about that more than the film. When film approaches the Cold War, it always takes like the Humphrey Bogart, like the view of the Americans is always Humphrey Bogart. It's always Rick.
Yeah.
Breaks the rules, but he does the right thing. What's cool about him is that he's just cool, like...
Right.
And so he's always the good guy because he's the coolest one in the room or something. And so Roy Scheider is kind of stepping into that role. I mean, Chief Brody, I'm sorry. Dr. Floyd, yeah, sure. I'm sure it was probably a little more interesting, some of the...
Grappling with that question?
Yeah.
I would hope so, because it is a question that I understand the idea of just focus on the science, but I think the Russians are right. You can't.
Yeah.
But so they figure out, there is something kind of weird going on with the Discovery, and so they want to go up there and take a look, and the U.S. can't. They have to hitch a ride with the Russians, which is really funny in 1985 to hear that, because that's the situation we're in now in 2023, and have been since at least the Obama administration, where we don't have space shuttles anymore. We can't go up to space on our own. We're either, hitching a ride from the Russians or from Elon Musk.
Right.
And what a horrible situation we're in.
Yeah. And I wonder if Clark had any idea. I mean, obviously, the reason why the space shuttle shut down was because of the two disasters.
No, see, here's where I disagree with you about why the space shuttle program went away. It costs money.
Mm-hmm.
Our government has, for the last 40 years, been working under an ideology of neoliberalism wherein you privatize everything that you possibly can and have it run by the free market, as it were, so that you don't have a government space agency doing all of the actual heavy lifting. You can just farm out that work to contractors. Everything is about farming out to contractors so that it's not actually being done by the government. And they did the same thing with our space program. And that's why you end up with stuff like SpaceX.
Well,
because of neoliberal policies.
Actually, I think they kept it going as long as the Cold War was going.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's true.
Like there's no way they would have put that much money into putting men on the moon if there was no, Cold War.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. We would not have gone to the moon if it wasn't a Soviet Union.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if we went to the moon, it would have been like, and we're setting up a mining operation immediately.
Yeah.
Except that it's a completely impractical thing. But that's something they still want to do. They want to mine asteroids, and they want to do this, and that's one of the reasons that they develop all the AI and all these like drones and autonomous, because they want to like mine stuff for precious metals and whatnot. But it has nothing to do with actual curiosity and exploration and a desire to get out into the stars. I mean, there are people who actually do want to do that, but even the people like Elon Musk who say that that's what they want to do, it's also like kind of bound up like weird eugenics. And why we're bothering to save this planet? We should go beyond it. And it's like people who, jerk off to Star Trek or something. And I love Star Trek, but let's be honest, like there's a certain like level of people who are like, we can't stay on this planet because, the sun's going to explode or because we ruined the environment. And sorry, you're kind of looking at me funny.
Well, I just want to say I'm a little upset with Weird Science for yet another thing. I feel like jerking off has become part of the show. Ever since that movie.
I will cut that. I am so sorry.
You don't have to cut it. I'm just saying that's our new reality. It's our new freedom, someone might say.
You're right. I really got to claw back my reliance on references to masturbation.
I'm just saying that's where we are now. That's what the Mary versus maybe we should change the logo.
Oh no! Oh man. So yeah, part of going up to the Discovery then is this Dr. Chandra, who is Bob Balaban's character. He wants to get Hal restarted. They want to figure out why Hal had a meltdown, because that is a mystery. The whole idea in 2001 is what caused Hal to malfunction. He shouldn't. There's no reason for it to do what it did, right?
And I have to say, the first time I saw him, bearded guy, there's Roy Scheider, immediately thought it was Richard Dreyfuss.
I understand.
And there's a couple scenes where he acts like Richard Dreyfuss, like the one where he's blaming Roy Scheider for like not closing the beaches when there's a shark out there. it's basically him saying like you caused Hal to malfunction.
Oh, and he does, because he
Yeah.
gets into like what caused Hal to malfunction is, if you remember in the first film, they think they're going to Jupiter for just exploration, and it is, but they're going there because there was the radio signal from a monolith on the moon that was sent to Jupiter, and that's why the Discovery was sent out there. But they didn't let anybody know. It was in like a secret tapes that would play once you got to Jupiter, right? When they got out there, they play the reason, and because there was subterfuge involved, not just from Floyd in not telling them exactly what their mission was until they got out there, but it had to be encoded in Hal what the mission was. But then there's like another message on top of that message that we find out was from the president and the National Security Council or whatever, saying that we have to keep this secret from the Russians as well. All these levels of subterfuge essentially fried Hal's circuits.
Yeah.
Because it was like contradictory commands caused a loop, a logic loop in his circuits, and that's what actually caused him to melt down, is because he had essentially two different programs, 2 or 3 different programs put into him at the same time, and they all just started clashing with each other.
Yeah.
And that caused a meltdown. And that's actually not a bad idea.
That's actually kind of satisfying as a reason. I'm okay with that. Like I kind of forgot what the reason was, like, you know, because it's been a long time since I saw 2010. I saw it in a theater, I think.
I don't really have an issue with that, but there is a thing in this film where there's just so much explaining what was strange and mysterious.
Oh yeah.
And I think by itself, explaining what made Hal malfunction is fine. And actually, I kind of like, there's like a little element of 70s political paranoia to it. This director, he also made like Capricorn 1. We faked the moon landing, or we faked a Mars landing or something like that? Mars landing, right. Yeah, so, you know, this is like another example of this particular director. Like, he likes that kind of thing, and it actually works really well here. On the other hand, again, there's something so weird about, you know, how the AI having this like homicidal rage in space that is never explained in the first film. And I realize, like, I guess you got to just treat these as two completely different things, but what works in this film is still very annoying because it takes away the mystery and the strangeness of the first film.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because Hal freaking out in the first film, it's kind of like your dad being mad at you when you're a kid and you have no idea what's happening. You know, like maybe the stock market crashed or maybe the Eagles lost. But but it's most likely the Eagles losing.
Yeah.
But like it's such a, you know, just unknowable thing, like, you know, in the first movie, because you're experiencing it. You're not, nothing's being told to you at all. Like, it's all you have is this red light to look at, and it doesn't blink, it doesn't do anything, it's just staring at you, and it's saying, oh, I'm sorry, I can't do that. Oh, by the way, your friends are dead.
But in this, they explain it all. And, you know, you brought up Blade Runner earlier, having, you know, the voiceovers, and there's the voiceovers in this, and there's a lot of explaining. And it just strikes me that in the 60s and 70s, filmmakers were challenging audiences. And they were willing to make things that were hard to understand and mysterious, and they didn't explain things, and they didn't hold the audience's hand. They challenged them, right? Not always, but, you know, especially with something like 2001. And in the 80s, everything is about hand-holding the audience. There's no reason to they don't trust the audience anymore to actually get things. You know, there's a certain I don't want to say dumbing down, but there's a lack of complexity in what they expect from the audience, right?
Yeah.
They don't just leave well enough alone. And you know, that's not always the fault of the director. Sometimes it's, you know, the studios coming back and saying, this will make us more money. And the thing is, like, it still happens now, right? You know, I mean, notes from a studio is death, but that's kind of the way it runs. Death to art, anyway.
And the thing is, like, around the same time, Dune, one of the weirdest films there are, came out. But that was also killed because he kind of gave in too much to the studio.
Absolutely. If they had just let him do what he wanted,
it would have been really weird and probably not make any money. But
So it's not like the studios are wrong,
Right.
in terms of what the audience wants. I'm not an elitist. I'm not smarter than anybody, but my sensibilities might be different from most people.
I just saw a comment on Twitter about Lord of the Rings, and it says like Lord of the Rings is a different kind of filmmaking, and studios haven't learned the lessons of Lord of the Rings to make a great film. And I'm like, you just don't get how films work. Like like these weird things happen, like 2001, like Star Wars, Lord of the Rings. These kind of unique ideas come out. It makes a ton of money. No one expected it to make. Like no one, who really thought 2001 is going to make, as much money as it did eventually. And then everyone just tries to copy it, and they do it badly over and over again. Like it's some people are good at it. Like some people just go in a totally different direction. Ridley Scott does it, makes Alien, which no one expected, and that was great.
Yeah.
You can't just recreate some amazing thing like that. It's inspiration, and then it goes away.
That's true. And I in watching this, I can't keep thinking, oh, why aren't you just making 2001 again? Because you can't. You can't. Like you literally can't.
Kubrick isn't doing it. He's like, yeah, I'm not going to do that.
No.
Sheesh.
And he never does it again
The
either.
end.
Yeah.
Let Spielberg do that nonsense. Here, take this AI thing.
Oh, I like that you brought up Alien for a second, though. Just I want to jump back to that because I feel like the design inside of the ship. There's something about like how dark it is in there, and how
the Leonov
or whatever the ship is called.
Oh yeah, that is definitely taking from Alien.
But I like that because it's a nice contrast to 2001. If you remember in 2001, like the interior of the Discovery it's very bright and white and clean and shining, and
You know what it is? It's the Tantive 4.
Huh?
It's the Tantive 4. Do you know what that is?
No.
That's Princess Leia's ship, and
Oh.
remember, it's white and shiny, and then here comes this guy messing the whole thing up. And then the rest of the movie is in this junkyard, these junk ships.
Oh. Yeah, you're
It's
right.
the same thing.
Huh.
I didn't even think of that till just now, but I was like, it's almost like Star Wars was doing the same thing. It's like, yeah, here's a clean ship, and let's blow it up, and then everything now is junk.
Oh my God, I think you're right. That's interesting.
I bet that's what Lucas was thinking of.
Yeah, because I mean, you're right. I hadn't put that together, but the interior there in the beginning of Star Wars is like the interior of 2001.
In fact, the original like Falcon ship basically looked like the Discovery.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and they're like, no, we got to make it look different. Like, do something else. We'll just do a hamburger.
So, do you think Kubrick kind of originates the white interior of ships like that?
Probably.
Because I can't think of anything before him that was doing something that looked like that. Of course, everything before 2001 really looks kind of goofy and yeah, like, when you really sit and think about what 2001 looks like, it really changed everything.
Yeah.
It's funny, like I'm saying, well, you think anything was like that before? And like, no, nothing was. Not really. So, but then what I like is when you get to this ship, the Russian ship that they're on, it does feel like the Nostromo is it? Yeah.
It feels like Nostromo. It feels like the mining colony in Outland.
Yes. Yeah.
It's kind of gritty and lived in, and
right.
People are spilling trays everywhere, and occasionally the gravity goes out in very specific spots.
Yeah, that was a weird moment where like they have a pen floating thing, and obviously it's like calling back to a famous scene in 2001, but it's also kind of like, okay, why is the pen floating now but nothing else is floating? Nobody's hair is moving around.
Yeah, he walked over here to flick the pen out of the air. It's like, come on.
Like that doesn't make sense. Even if you got let's say you have like gravity boots, because I remember in 2001 like the stewardess is like walking around wearing grip boots or something, and it's really nicely acted, and I love how that looks. But in this, they don't bother with any of that.
No.
Everybody walks around like normal. It's like there's actually gravity. Like I don't want to say anything bad about this film, but there's an attention to weird details like that in 2001 that they just never do in this.
Yeah.
And then they go in, so then why have like this moment of anti-gravity or non-gravity or whatever you want to call it, weightlessness? It doesn't make any sense. And it's just kind of like, what are we
like
doing?
The only part that really does work is where John Lithgow and Max, they do a spacewalk to get to
that part's great.
to get to Discovery, which is now spinning.
Mm-hmm.
And there's like this kind of centrifuge on the Leonov that's also spinning. They're both spinning in the same direction, which is kind of cool. John Lithgow is an Armageddon guy in that he's like he's a engineer. He's not a spaceman, but he knows how to fix.
Did you just say a spaceman as opposed to an astronaut?
Yeah, he's a spaceman.
Fair enough.
No.
Fair enough.
So he's an engineer, and he doesn't know. He's like, I have to do a spacewalk, but they have to get him onto the ship. I don't know why they couldn't have just gone there themselves and then put the whatever.
I forget. But it doesn't matter what the actual reasoning was. We get a really good performance from Lithgow being terrified.
Yeah, and he and Max calming each other down, because it is a kind of terrifying scene of like this just stuff spinning and like, oh man, stars and everything. That's
probably one of the best things in the film is the spacewalk and them walking around the ruins of the Discovery and trying to figure out, can we even go on here? Can we breathe on here? Once they get to the Discovery and they're trying to figure out, what's going on and, what exactly did happen with Hal and can we restart that computer? And at the same time, Dave shows back up.
Yeah.
And that gets weird. And that's the one part of this film, like, some of it's great and some of it's, like, weird and maudlin, right? Mm-hmm. So that on the one hand, they bring back Keir as Dave Bowman.
Yeah.
He is now, like, I don't know, an ascended master or something. Yeah. He is the Star Child. And he...
Jedi Ghost.
Yeah, exactly. He appears, like, on Earth to, I guess, his wife... and says, yeah, sorry, dude, I'm like a weird ghost thing now. Love ya. I gotta go.
Something great's gonna happen, though.
Something wonderful is gonna happen. Yeah. Like, man, it's really creepy when he says that, though. I'm really...
Something wonderful.
And then he, I guess, appears to his dying mother and, like, brushes her hair. Yeah. And then, she because she's ancient, she's very old. So, and then she dies.
Happy, though.
And she does die happy, which it's sort of it's sweet, but it's also a little weird and upsetting to watch for some reason. Every time they go back to Earth, it feels weird on this because it's definitely, I don't know.
That's not part of the Odyssey verse.
Well, here's an interesting thing. I don't know if it's interesting, but they're filming it in the 80s, and it more or less looks like the late 20th century.
Yeah, it's
funny watching this and just being like, it's supposed to be the year 2010, and 2010 is lacking in some of this technology, but also already has some of this technology. Like, there's a scene where Dr. Floyd is doing work on the beach, and he basically just has a laptop open.
He has an Apple IIc.
Sure. Is that a thing?
It was. So there was the Apple IIe, and then I remember there was these ads in magazines for the Apple IIc. It had like a skinnier keyboard and a smaller monitor, which at the time was great. I don't know why, but we liked small monitors because it was like smaller graphics and
How is that good? You can't see anything.
I don't know, but I totally wanted an Apple IIc. I was like, oh no, that's my jam. So I was really excited when I saw that, and then I read it was actually an Apple IIc. So he's on the beach with a laptop,
which is kind of what you had to do this summer, actually.
Yeah.
So yeah, he gets to work remotely, and it's
living the dream.
Yeah. But at the same time, he also has a house with dolphins in it.
Yeah. Like
it looks like oh god, what was that show, Sequest or whatever?
No, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Like, it was very strange, like that moment where he's got this kid who's like feeding dolphins some fish.
Yeah, they're the dogs of the future.
I like that a lot. So yeah, like 2010 in this, it does look kind of like the late 20th century because, I mean, how could you not? It's when they're filming it. But it's very weird to be on Earth because you spend almost all of the other film, the first film, once we're not monkeys anymore, we're in space in that movie. Like, there's no Earth. Like, Earth exists and they have contact with it, but we don't spend any time there. And we're spending enough time in this on planet Earth that it feels weird. And what's funny is, like, of course, everything looks like the 80s, but it's like that kind of like the white and pastel. Like the interior, like every interior of like the houses in this kind of reminded me of beach houses down the shore in the 80s, which is not bad. I mean, that's fine. And like, it works. But it was just funny watching this and just being like, there's a lot of stuff set on Earth here. And so the tone, the mood is so different from the first film in that we keep going back to Earth. And like, it makes sense for what this film wants to talk about. Hey, let's not forget that we actually live here and stuff. But it just feels so different from 2001.
The thing is that 2001 essentially starts on Earth, and that it's there's monkeys and all that. But I feel like,
and I know it's not monkeys. We're saying it's the colloquial
chimps.
monkey. They're early hominids. It's fine. I know. Look, I took anthropology. I'm not stupid. But they're monkeys.
Yeah, they're monkeys.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey.
Yeah.
But the first movie, everything happens on Earth, and then they move to the moon, and then they go out to Jupiter, and like Jupiter is like a completely different thing. Everything's quiet and desolate, and you just feel the distance. Like every communication is like there's like a 7-minute delay.
You're so cut off from humanity.
Yeah. You could easily have just chucked the Dave Bowman visiting people on Earth stuff in the beginning. Even maybe not even shown him, maybe just had his voice on the TV, and then like had like the brushing his mom's hair or something, and just had it like not make any sense, like it's just this weird voice or whatever. If you just left the Earth stuff at the very beginning and then just left it behind and had it be like had that kind of desolate feeling later on, although it's a different movie, it's and there's more people, so it's not as alone as like, because you really feel alone by the end of 2001. It's just you.
Yeah.
And your only friend is Hal, and you just turned him off.
Right, because he tried to kill you.
Well, yeah, but he's a nice guy. I mean,
he tried to kill you.
He's got a song. It's nice. Anyway, so like, yeah, because I feel like, because most of it is the Earth stuff is at the beginning, but then they
keep going back to Earth.
They cut back for Bowman, but then they keep talking. Oh yeah, I guess there are some other scenes where they cut back, but I feel like all those scenes they could have just been chucked in the beginning.
Yeah, except for like kind of the build up to the war and sort of that the reaction to stuff. But yeah, it just feels sort of weird going back to Earth as often as they do.
I'm a little annoyed at the build up for the war thing because it's all set up in the beginning. Whatever happens in Honduras happens at the very beginning, like when they're on the
radio
radio
telescopes. Yeah.
So he falls asleep for 3 weeks on this ship going up to Jupiter, wakes up, and he's like, "It's worse," and they don't really say anything. It just doesn't.
Oh, see, I don't really mind that because it's a MacGuffin.
I know it's a MacGuffin, but I just feel like there's so many, like, this is the paranoid 70s. Like, I feel like could have been handled better. Like, it could have felt a little more chaotic and scary. Like I didn't really buy the
danger of war,
the tensions.
No,
it felt like plot driven more than actual driven.
Maybe, I don't know. That part didn't really bother me.
I wish Honduras wasn't mentioned in the beginning, and it doesn't get mentioned until he wakes up, is what I'm saying.
I don't agree.
I agree.
You agree with yourself?
Good point.
Anyway.
Thank you.
So Dave shows up on the ship, and with Floyd, and basically he appears to Floyd, and that's a genuinely weird moment. Like all the earlier stuff with Dave just feels like kind of weird and hokey and almost maudlin.
Yeah.
But this is where you actually have that momentary spark of Kubrick's original film, in that he shows up and he kind of gives this cryptic warning of, you guys got to get out of here in 2 days.
Also, he's changing age over and over again.
Yeah, I was going to say, but as he appears to Floyd, he keeps changing shape so that, he shows up in his spacesuit, but then all of a sudden he's like himself as the older man in like the smoking jacket, and then all of a sudden he's like the super old man, who's dying, and he, and he's giving this warning of, you guys have to get out of here, because in 2 days something wonderful is going to happen, which is a strange warning to give people.
Yeah.
But the way that he his body keeps changing, and then it, the last moment it ends with him as the Star Child just kind of giving Floyd the side eye, like, get out of here. It's really nice and weird. Like, that's nicely done. And that's the moment I think that gets the closest to what the original film is in terms of, like, this is strange and he's not explaining anything, and that's good and that's great. And I really like that part.
Yeah.
Floyd just buys it. Like, yeah, you know what? Dave showed up, and so we got to get out of here. And
But he doesn't tell anyone that.
He doesn't
He
explain.
just says, we got to leave in 2 days.
Yeah. And for whatever reason, they just agree to it. Like, I don't know. Like, I feel like I missed a step somewhere.
Yeah.
Like, they all kind of go, okay, I guess we got to get out of here. And part of the problem is because the two countries are at war, like, the Americans are on the Discovery and the Russians are on their ship. And so it's like they can't get out of there in 2 days unless they all get onto the Russian ship and use the fuel from the Discovery. So, the whole thing is sort of an exercise in, oh God, now that our lives are on the line, we have to work together even though our governments don't want us to. And so they end up doing that.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, Jupiter has this giant black cloud on it. Everybody can picture Jupiter in their heads, right? You have, like, the orange clouds and everything. You've got the big red spot.
Yeah.
Can I tell you real quickly? So, like, I'm kind of an astronomy person. I have a couple. We own a couple of telescopes, and I like to, stargaze and all that stuff. There's something terrifying about Jupiter to me.
Yeah.
There's something about looking at the planet Jupiter and I don't entirely understand why. It's scary.
Well, you can't land on it.
Well, I know, no, but I mean, I'm not even talking about, like, on a logical level of Jupiter is kind of a weird object, right? It's his gas.
Yeah.
It's this gassy thing. We don't even think it has a solid core.
Mm-hmm.
The end of the film where they turn it into a star, like, this is based on an idea that scientists have debated, and I don't think they still entirely think this, that it is a failed star. Mm-hmm. That if it had just gotten a little more mass, it would have been able to start kickstart fusion. But there's something, like, just looking at Jupiter, there's something very weird about staring at it, right? And just seeing that red spot, like, I don't know, I think it's something about the red spot that there's something unnerving about it to me, and I don't know why that is. But I've always found looking at Jupiter a little hard to do. It just, I don't know, there's something about that, like, gives me goosebumps in, like, kind of a slightly scary way. Are you familiar with the concept of the sublime?
I don't know.
The English Romantic poets would talk about the sublime, and I have a feeling I'm sure it probably comes from some philosopher that I don't read philosophy because that stuff's hard and I'm not that smart. But the sublime is like an encounter with something you kind of can't entirely wrap your head around, and you can feel it, especially in natural settings sometimes. I remember when you and I went to Yosemite, and we were in the bowl, right? And you have El Capitan, like, high above you, but you have, like, all these cliffs around you, right? You're in this little valley,
Pretty much all the way around you.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's an overwhelming experience.
Yeah.
And honestly, I felt a little bit of terror, and I couldn't explain why. But there's something about being in the bowl that I found is a little scary and intimidating, and that's kind of what the poets talk about when they talk about the sublime, right? It's this almost terror at something that is bigger than you and you can't control, and it's like a natural force, a phenomenon, and it's hard to explain. But I have the same feeling when I look at Jupiter as a planet. There's something a little terrifying about it for me. So this movie got a little hard for me to get through, actually, at the end, because you have a giant black cloud suddenly taking over Jupiter.
Yeah.
And it turns out this weird black spot that starts to eat the planet. It looked like it was eating it. It's like billions of these monoliths.
And I have to say, I think this effect would have worked a lot better if they didn't zoom in.
Yeah.
Because it zooms in, and suddenly there's this one zoom where suddenly it just looks like a Disney, like, just like these cartoon chocolate bars like circling around in red soup or something.
Yeah, it doesn't look great.
It's
one thing when the monolith is just there in the landscape, or it's this giant, like 2 kilometer wide thing floating there. and it's this weird impenetrable thing because earlier they had encountered like the monolith,
Yeah.
and then it disappeared, right? When it's just by itself and you have all that scary chanting music going on, whenever you get near it, like that is terrifying, and that's strange, and again that's that sense of the sublime, right?
Yeah.
When you see, like, as you say, the animation of like, oh, here's a whole bunch of chocolate bars floating in tomato soup, it kind of takes away like the wonder and mystery.
It reminds me a little bit of that scene in Bugs Bunny where where the baseball scene where he's pitching and they're all hitting home runs repeatedly and they're all like walking around in a circle.
Yes,
like it's. I don't know. It just suddenly is like a silly image, and it was like,
yeah, it doesn't look good at all. It just loses all of the strange mystery
and like the sharpness of it suddenly, and that's kind of a thing with these movies of the '80s, like where there's so many effects work really well, and then suddenly here's this monitor that's a CRT monitor, and everything's all blurry and stuff, and like Star Wars has a little bit of the same thing, but like where it's like here's all these amazing effects, and then here's this crappy monitor where you can barely see anything, and they keep like magnify, and it's just these black blobs. And the thing is, if they had just kind of stuck with just the black blobs, it probably would have been scarier. And, if they even just said it's actually millions of those monoliths or something, that would have been scary. But like that one shot just really takes me out of it.
Oh, I completely agree. So Jupiter gets crushed, you might say, by this cloud.
Yeah,
It kickstarts fusion.
Mm-hmm.
And next thing you know, you have Jupiter becomes a star.
Yeah.
We didn't really talk about it, but yeah, so, Jupiter has a number of moons, and we have actually been exploring them for decades now, trying to figure out, do any of them support life? And in this, the idea is that Europa has chlorophyll on it. They've detected chlorophyll, and like, how did this happen? This means there's life elsewhere in the universe, and not on planet Earth. And that's always been this kind of weird solipsistic debate that we've had. Does life exist anywhere other than Earth? And you have some people who go, yeah, of course. Well, I mean, it would be weird if there wasn't. I mean, whether we can contact it or not, that's a different question. But yeah, I mean, it would be really weird if there wasn't some form of organic life elsewhere in the universe. And then you have other people saying, obviously, there's no evidence that there is any life elsewhere, and blah blah blah. And you get into like what Drake equation and all that type of stuff. And
this is obviously because we came up with MMOs. All of life is an MMO.
Oh God! Don't even get me started on all that nonsense. The idea that like this is all a computer simulation.
Yeah,
oh God! Don't do. I hate that is one I hate the most.
Book alert. So, a change in the book. So, in the movie, they send a pod down to Europa's surface because that's how they find out that there's chloroform or whatever.
Right.
In the book, it's actually a Chinese rocket.
Huh.
The Chinese have beaten both the U.S. and Russia in the space race, and they sent a rocket up to Jupiter. And both the U.S. and Russians are like, what are they doing? And they're actually just there to mine or something like that. They're just goofing on around or something. But they land on Europa, and a big static thing kills all of them except for this one Dr. Chang, who says there's life on here, and that's the last thing he says. And then you never hear from him again. He presumably dies. But
no, that is nowhere in the film. So yeah. Then that's how we end up with the end of the film is, because Jupiter becomes a star and we stay away from Europa, life is able to develop there. And like the end of the movie is, aside from, hey, now we all live in peace and harmony, all that stuff, we see, I guess, millennia, millions of years even on Europa, that it slowly develops into having like swamps and whatnot. And then you see a monolith in the swamp. And so I guess the idea is that in the future there's going to be intelligent life then on Europa, and we're not alone in the universe.
Yep.
But it beats you over the head with that, that stupid, all these worlds are yours except for this. Cool. And then what are those two stupid last lines that we hate so much?
Use them together use them in peace.
Oh, God, bite me. I mean, yes, I agree with the sentiment, but you don't got to beat us over the head with it.
By the way, Dave Bowman visits Hal to send
I
this.
forgot about that. Yeah, so they get Hal back up and running.
Yeah.
And they fix him because now they don't lie to him. And on the one hand, okay, yeah, I get the moral argument you're making, yawn. But also, you programmed him right. You didn't try to run too many programs all at once and crash the system. Because my laptop is currently having that problem as we speak. Hal is redeemed, I guess. And he and Dave kind of merge into, a consciousness.
But I do like how Dr. Chandra, it's like he's a third side. He's not on the Russian side. He's not on the U.S. side. It's kind of interesting.
And that's why it would have been cool if he was played by an Indian actor.
Oh, yeah.
It would be I'm outside of the system. I represent, the third world, literally, in the sense of we're not the Soviet Union and we're not the United States. We are our own system. It would have made a lot of sense to cast an Indian actor.
But even beyond that,
make him African or whatever, the point being somebody who is not stuck into the duopoly of... Yeah.
But even then, just call him Langley.
Right, yeah. If you're not going to bother, then just call him Langley.
Get a continuity person at all
Please.
to read the previous script and say, oh, yeah, I guess we already changed him, and here we have this actor, so... Right,
if you're not going to, get Kingsley, and you're not going to get an Indian actor other than him, and there are others. There are lots. I mean, there's there are a billion people in India, and there's a whole bunch of that. I mean, Bollywood has been around since the beginning of film.
Hollywood was like John Rhys Davies.
No. Oh God.
Christopher Lee.
Oh God, please no. So yeah, but Hal, I guess, merges with Dave and vice versa, and they are this whole other consciousness. And then reading up, I guess in the book they talk about how they kind of merge into the monolith or something like that. I don't know. There's a lot of merging that happens.
Yeah. So we're both fans of Pet Sounds, the Beach Boys.
God, yeah.
Album.
Where are you going with this?
So there's a song, "Hang On to Your Ego."
Oh yeah.
Written by Dave. Written by Dave Bowman about Frank. No. I don't like how you're doing things, Frank. But no, it's written by Brian Wilson, possibly about Mike Love.
Well, yeah.
And Mike Love didn't like it and had it changed.
Yeah.
I don't know the story behind it, but
no, yeah. I mean, basically, so during Pet Sounds, yeah, it's funny you brought this up. Pet Sounds, the song is, there's two versions of the song, all right?
Yes.
And there is, Hang On to Your Ego, which is basically saying you're getting really lost in this mysticism and you're kind of losing who you are in it. Yeah. And maybe that's not actually going to work. Mm-hmm. And then it's a great song, and I love that song. Yeah. And so they record a version of it, and Mike Love hates it, and he's like, you have to change the words, because this is obviously aimed at me.
Yeah.
And so he changes it to, I know there's an answer. And I'm like, that's not saying anything.
No.
And in fact, it's probably saying the opposite. Yeah. In fact, because apparently the answer is, I'm not going to hang on to my ego, which is ironic because it's Mike Love.
So the line is hang on to your ego, but I know you're probably going to lose the fight.
Yeah.
It changed to, I know there's an answer, but I had to find it by myself. And it's so lame.
It's so dumb.
And that's what these two lines, this use them together, use them in peace, feels like to me. It's just here's this, so it's this weird last line from Clark, attempt no landing there. The end, it's like, what? I thought this was wonderful,
Yeah.
Nah, it's weird. Just be weirded out. And it just attacks these two stupid lines together because everything revolves around the U.S. and Russia in this thing.
And it doesn't have to.
Hold hands, you two. It's Helen Mirren. She's actually English. Don't worry about it. She scares you. Yeah, she scares us all. But, I wonder if people understand what the year 2000 represented to people before the year 2000. Especially in the 50s. It was in 1999 was a million years away or something. And the year 2000, obviously Conan O'Brien would kind of make fun of it.
Yes, yeah, I remember the Conan sketches on late night. And
he kept doing them way past the year 2000, which kept kind of getting funnier. But
yeah. But yeah, it was this idea like the year 2000 is so far in the future. Like even as a kid in the 80s, it just felt like that's like a million years from now.
But also, it was like the promise of the future. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, we'll be in space. We'll have flying cars. We'll have like coffee that doesn't get cold, and like everything you could wish for was all magic. Like it'll all be figured out by then.
It's the age of Aquarius, man.
Yeah, and then the year 2000 passes, and now there's no future. Like it just didn't happen.
I remember, December of '99. And, aside from like people freaking out about Y2K, and obviously I was not truly freaked out about Y2K because I was at a party. But yeah, there was that sense of, okay, as the 90s, the Cold War ends and there's this sense of, hey, maybe we can actually have the future now. And I mean, look, we were naive. But there was that sense of, okay, now that nobody feels like we're going to die in a nuclear war, leaving aside what we did to Russia, I understand, with the dismantling of the Soviet Union, that's a different subject. As far as the idea of we don't have nuclear holocaust hanging over our heads anymore, and we can kind of build this, amazing future of space exploration and all the rest of this stuff. And I tell you, man, that for me, that died the moment Bush v. Gore happened. It was just kind of like, oh my God, okay, there isn't going to be a future? Because the Supreme Court's going to decide who the president is? Oh, I see. I see how this is going to go. I mean, that's where it started to die for me. I mean, obviously then 2001 happens, 9/11 happens, and it's like, oh, we're just on a war footing for the rest of our lives. And then like another year or two goes by, and the Columbia space shuttle Columbia explodes. I mean, like, it was just like, oh, thing after thing after thing is, oh, that magic future isn't really going to happen, is it? The only thing we got out of the magic future is iPhones.
Yeah.
It bites.
It does.
The future sucks.
But like when 2001 came out, like it was going ahead of that year.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's I feel like, I don't know, it's lost its punch. I feel like people I just feel like people don't get what that meant at the time.
So that was 2010, the year we make contact, starring Roy Scheider, John Lithgow, Helen Mirren, Bob Balaban, Keir, Douglas Rain comes back as HAL 9000, and just a bunch of other people.
Candice Bergman.
That's right. Candice Bergen is the voice of Sal 9000, the Chandra's Earthbound computer.
Yeah.
So.
Oh man, a sitcom missed there. I'm home. Welcome home.
Directed by Peter Hyams and written by Arthur C. Clarke and Peter Hyams. And Peter Hyams should have, not put as much into that script as he did. He spoils that ending.
See, the thing is, like, we've had so many directors thwarted by the studio's stories. We haven't seen anything about that here, and so
No.
I don't know if that is Peter Hyams. Like,
No,
I remember...
as far as I know, he is the one who he tacked that on.
Boo.
Come on, man. Have some faith in the audiences.
Yeah.
Well, then again, I mean, this is the same audiences that loved things like Red Dawn. So what do I know?
You haven't seen Red Dawn?
I know.
Don't besmirch his good name.
Good name. All right. You can follow us on social media. We are Mary vs. Movies on Twitter for as long as Twitter exists, because apparently Elon's going to start charging you to be on there. So, that is a sinking ship.
For me, it was the biometric data thing that that's the 29th. They're going to start asking to get more biometric data or something.
Well, I'm not going to give it.
I just want to get out before then. I don't know.
Feel free. No, I mean,
I
there's a
hate it.
part of me that's holding on with the hope that he like is forced to sell somehow, and like it just doesn't suck anymore.
I've only held on because there's so many people that I know on there. That,
And they're
like,
not all on Blue Sky, and they're not
yeah.
going to join Blue Sky.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't want to lose them.
I know.
I like you people.
I like you people too.
Mm.
But we're on Blue Sky, and we'll give you codes if you DM me. And in order to do that, so on Twitter we are Mary vs Movies. On Instagram we're Mary vs Movies. On Blue Sky we're Mary vs Movies. On Tumblr we are Mary versus the Movies, and on Mastodon, which not very many people seem to use these days, Mastodon is Mary vs Movies at mas.to. Let's see. We don't have the website because I know. Look, man, I don't even know when this episode's coming out. We've been really busy lately. We have like family stuff going on, and yeah, it's fine.
Maybe when this episode come out, the website will be up.
Oh man,
Sorry.
really?
I'm sorry.
You really gonna do that to me?
No, I'm sorry. I take that back.
We're available on all of the major platforms. We are on Apple Podcasts, where you can rate and review the show, and we would really appreciate it if you did. And the same thing is true on Spotify. You can rate and review the show there, although I don't know anybody who actually does that. I certainly keep forgetting that exists. Speaking of things that don't exist, Stitcher. Still annoyed about that. Let's see. You can get us through Overcast, Google Play, pretty much all of the major ways of getting a podcast. And you can always go to the Libsyn website, get our RSS feed, and plug it into whatever your podcatcher of choice is. We have a Patreon where you can help support the show, and we would really appreciate it if you did, because the show does cost money to make. We have to not just rent movies, but we also have to pay for the server. We have a Zoom account for having guests, which we're going to have guests soon because things are settling down in terms of, having moved in. Yes, we still are living amongst boxes, but at least we have a more permanent space in which...
Smaller boxes.
Yeah, they're getting smaller. Anyway, so yes, we will be having guests again soon. But the show costs money to make, and so you can help support the show for $3 a month at Patreon. We are patreon.com/MaryVSMovies. And if you sign up for the Patreon, not only will we send you buttons and stickers when we finally find our equipment for making the buttons and stickers. I'm sorry, we do owe some of you people some stuff, and I really do apologize for that.
Sorry, Jess.
Yeah, sorry, Jessica. But
We love you.
and not just Jessica. Yeah, we do. We love you too.
Other people too?
Oh, yeah, we have a couple new subscribers. So
Me too.
yeah. Sorry. We've had a very long day. We both worked overtime today, and
Yeah.
our brains are mush. But yeah, so if you sign up for the Patreon, you will also get access to our second podcast, Hollywood Avalon, where we watch movies with an Arthurian theme. Let's see. The next one that's coming out, and will either have come out by now or will be out very soon, is King Arthur Was a Gentleman, which is a goofy, like, British war propaganda film from the 40s.
Not the worst we've seen.
No, actually, no,
Okay.
it was fine. I mean, it is what it is. But we've also done movies like George Romero's Knight Riders,
Yay.
Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade,
Yay.
The Kid Who Would Be King,
Yay.
First Night. Yeah, I know. And The Knights of the Round Table.
Yeah.
Yeah, which was very colorful, and I kind of like it, even though it's
Yeah.
been, on the hokey side. So yeah, and coming up after Arthur Was a Gentleman, I don't know yet, but there will be one. Yeah, we have so many more films to go through. So that is our second podcast, Hollywood Avalon. So yes, sign up for the Patreon, and you will get access to that show. Finally, you can sign up for our newsletter. Now, if you're signed up to the Patreon, it will automatically go out whenever we send that out. But you can also just write to us and get on the mailing list, which is maryvsmovies@gmail.com. That's right. Write to us with any comments, questions, complaints, or suggestions. We would love to hear from you, and we would love to sign you up for our newsletter, where we will talk about the films that we have watched. We'll talk about the film that we're doing for the week. We'll talk about films and TV shows that we're watching, concerts we've gone to, whatever kind of art that we're ingesting. And speaking of ingesting, Dennis will often review pizza because he has pizza almost every week.
Yeah, those were the days.
I know, you haven't had pizza yet this week, and I am sorry. We will find time.
I remember pizza.
We'll find time for you to get pizza.
Yeah.
So yeah, once again, that's maryvsmovies@gmail.com. Just write to us. We'll put you on the mailing list.
It's been 84 years.
What are you, the old lady in Titanic?
Was it 84 or 86? I
I
can't
don't.
remember.
Well,
I don't know. Heart of the ocean, whatever it is.
was the heart of the ocean what you called your pizza?
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
It's been a long time.
It's been a week. Anyway, God, we really are a mess this week, aren't we?
A little bit.
All right, next week we've already flipped a coin.
Mm-hmm.
Our next episode is Close Encounters of the Third Kind, which I'm excited to watch. And I've watched most Spielberg, but that's one that I've missed.
Do you know the song?
Do 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 do.
Yeah, you know the song.
Yeah, I mean that's
Have you
the
heard
thing.
the disco version?
No.
Oh, well, we'll put it on.
As far as that movie goes, I've never seen anything but like the very end of the movie. I saw.
Spoiler alert.
Well, look, everybody knows what happens. The aliens show up at the end,
big
and they
ball
play.
of pasta shows up.
Yeah, and they play like music at each other.
Yeah.
So I've seen the end of the film. I haven't seen anything else in it.
You've missed all the sex scenes.
I don't want to see. God, what am I letting myself into? Anyway, look, it's a Spielberg movie. That's a man who should not direct sex scenes. The only sex scene I can think of in one of his films is in Munich, and like that is a weird scene if you remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He.
So anyway, until next time.
All these worlds are yours except Europa. Attempt no landing there.
The end. That's it. That's all that should have been there. Credits.